fading skies. Tattered flags waving dreams in our eyes. The crowds roar like a storm on the wind. We're the underdogs fighting again.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Stateside Footy. It's your boy Steve, back again with some roster reactions because today Mauricio Pochettino dropped his 26-man World Cup roster. Considering that, we saw the roster leaks a couple days ago, I think it kind of took the, I guess you can say, the excitement out of it. But that being said, the Federation with Fox, did this whole song and dance and this pony show in New York City. I'm definitely obligated to come on and talk a little bit about it because, by and large, it's exactly what I expected from Mauricio Pochettino. So, before we do it, do me a favor, please, and make sure you hit that like and subscribe button and also hit the notification bell. We are close to 500 subs, and I would like to get there before the World Cup. So please do me a favor and show your support for the channel by hooking me up, man. Throw a little sub my way. All right. As I mentioned just 30 seconds ago, Mauricio Pochettino dropped his 26. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. And we are going to begin with the goalkeepers for this roster. And of course, I didn't expect any differential as Matt Freese, Matt Turner, and Chris Brady were named to the 26-man roster. As things stand, Matt Freese is set to be the starter. And of course, that has been the case for a good portion of 2025 after Matt Turner ultimately lost his starting gig. And, from that, he had an opportunity this last March. He was given a golden opportunity, wasn't able to take advantage to it. In the meantime, Chris Brady really excelled in that March camp to the point where Mauricio Pochettino was glossing Chris Brady. And so from that standpoint, I actually don't mind that as the third goalkeeper option off the bench, as long as that third option is pushing both of these guys forward and getting these guys ready for the World Cup. I have absolutely no problem with the inclusion of Chris Brady. As far as young talent in Major League Soccer, as far as the goalkeeper goes, he's probably one of two or three really good young American goalkeepers that are currently applying their trade. And so from that standpoint, the third goalkeeper, in my estimation, is kind of irrelevant. Generally speaking, it is used for this purpose, which is a young goalkeeper. That being said, we have seen instances where former coaches in the past have used a more experienced veteran as the third. Of course, Tony Miola was a part of the 2002 squad, but, I think that's more exception than the rule. There were some fans that were wanting to see Diego coaching. Me personally, I don't think it necessarily matters because at least from this standpoint, unless something horrifically happens during the World Cup, Chris Brady's not going to see a lot of action. So from that standpoint, these three were exactly who I expected to be on this roster. Now, that being said, it's not the deepest at the goalkeeping position that we've ever seen. As a matter of fact, I can't tell you exactly why that's happened. Why we haven't been able to continue the factory of goalkeepers that this country has, been blessed with essentially since, the late 80s, pushing into the 90s, where we had, just a assortment of riches at the goalkeeper position. But really, after Tim Howard, we really haven't, I wouldn't say we haven't put goalkeepers in Europe, but what it boils down to is goalkeepers not necessarily taking advantage of the opportunities, whether that be with clubs or whether that be on loans. It just hasn't necessarily worked out. And of course, Matt Turner being a prime example, him and also Zach Steffen, who made big moves to the Premier League and unfortunately weren't able to continue those careers, as both are back in Major League Soccer now and probably will be for the foreseeable future. The only two guys or three guys of noticeability over there in Europe are probably Diego Cochin, Jonathan Klinsmann, and maybe Gaga Slonina. But, two of those guys, actually all three of them, potentially need moves away in order to jumpstart their careers and also their national team careers. But as it is, these three goalkeepers are exactly what I expected. Let's turn to the defense now. And Mauricio Pochettino is bringing 10 defenders. And of course, this is exactly what I thought I was going to see. 5 center backs, 5 outside backs, and headlined, of course, by Chris Richards. I don't think that's really going to be too big of a surprise. Now, of course, Chris is potentially dealing with an ankle injury. Of course, reports out of England and, of course, Crystal Palace, Oliver Glasner, did state that there might be some torn ligaments in the ankle. That being said, I would probably assume that as we speak, he is being evaluated by the U.S. medical team, and I would assume that it's going to be a game time decision whether Chris is actually going to play or not. My hunch is that Chris is going to play, because I just can't envision a scenario where he's not going to start in a home World Cup. If that means that he has injections and he tapes the shit out of that ankle, he's going to do what he's going to do to be on the pitch. Austin Trusty is also going to be another one of these center backs, along with Mark McKenzie, Tim Ream, and Miles Robinson was named to the squad. Now, of course, in my 26-man roster, I had Noah Kai Banks because I just thought I was kind of holding out hope that maybe he might be a late roster inclusion, because let's be perfectly honest, we already have one defective center back in Tim Ream. The last thing we really kind of needed was another one in Miles Robinson. And listen, I've been consistent by saying, listen, ever since his injury, he's not really been the same player. As a matter of fact, I think the argument could be made that he's progressively gotten worse. I think we've seen that at times with the National League. Now, granted, I will give Miles Robinson some credit. There were a couple windows last fall where he actually didn't look half bad. But that being said, he also didn't look half good. He was kind of neutral, kind of stuck in that kind of position. But that being said, those are your 5 center backs. And as it stands right now, because this is not exactly the strongest position of depth for the U.S. men's national team. As of right now, my 3 starters, like if I had my option, would be Trusty, Richards, and McKenzie, and Tim Ream, obviously for vibes. And if there is a case where you have to break glass because of injury or somebody can't go, then yeah, that's kind of where you pull out Miles Robinson. But that being said, when you look at the outside backs, Jedi is on this roster. No surprise. Joe Scally made this as well too, and Joe Scally was actually on my preliminary list as well too. If Noah Kai Banks wasn't going to be a part of this one, I had Joe Scally as a replacement. So congratulations to Joe Scally. That is also the option as well too, as Joe Scally can also facilitate some time on the right side as well as that right center back position as well too. So there is some flexibility in that backup right center back position. The remaining outside backs, without any type of surprise, is Max Arfston and Alex Freeman. And I don't think that was going to be that shouldn't be a surprise to any U.S. men's national team fan whatsoever. I know a lot of people don't like Max Arfston, fair, but I think we've established this for well over a year now, since last January, where once he was brought into that March camp, that Nations League camp last March, that pretty much established himself as that backup left back option. And at this stage, who are you going to bring in outside of John Tolkien, who, by the way, is injured? Who are you going to bring in? Christopher Lund? You're going to bring in Marlon Fossey? Those guys did have, a couple cups of coffee early in 2025, and we haven't seen them since. And so from that standpoint, Mauricio Pochettino likes Arfston and likes what he's able to bring, especially if they're playing in a back three and you're asking your wing backs to push higher up the pitch and hug the touch lines. Having a guy who essentially plays left wing at his club, that seems to play a little bit into his strength. And of course, Alex Freeman was outside of potentially Diego Luna in 2025. I don't think anybody has taken that massive step quite like Alex Freeman going, essentially playing his first full year in Major League Soccer and then making the jump to Villarreal. That's actually quite impressive. And of course, Serginho Dest is on this defense as well too, starting right back. And I don't think there's any doubt, especially after that Belgium match where we saw Tim Weah, and in a back four, he just couldn't defend. So from that standpoint, those are your 10 defenders. And, this is kind of where the conversation really does kind of begin, because everybody's got their opinions on it. And so from that standpoint, let me know how you feel about these 10 defenders. If there was anybody that you would like to switch out, if there's a name that you would prefer to see, go ahead and leave that in the chat as well too. Wouldn't mind having a discussion about it. Derby, the 501st 2, says we really about to not make it out of the group stage. I wouldn't go that far. The group stage is tailor-made for us to get out of. And even as this team is set up, I still think we're better than both Paraguay and Australia. Now, again, we still have to play those matches, but we're still better than those two teams. And I would probably assume that Turkey might be a little bit better, but we're in a position where we can compete with them. Who knows exactly how that one's going to play out, but it is tailor-made it is tailor-made for this group to get out of the group stages. Greg 1987 says, still say George Campbell not in the World Cup cycle is wild to me. I understand. But, again, there were a few dudes in Europe that didn't even get a look. And a lot of people will scream MLS quota. I don't necessarily believe that. And I've been vocal about the ridiculousness surrounding the narrative of an MLS quota. Me personally, I just chalk it up to the fact that Pochettino had 18 months to really get to know this player pool and understand that he wasn't hired for dual nationals. That's not why he was hired. He was not hired to recruit dual nationals, and he was not hired to, streamline the pathways from the youth team to the first team. He was hired because the Federation sold him on a golden generation, and he was brought in to specifically win with that golden generation. And if he can improve the margins of this national team with the guys like Alex Freeman and Max Arfston, then that's that. And that is exactly what this roster screams to me. Of course, Nateski75 says, hi, Stateside, RIFC, TID, USA. What's up, my guy, Nateski? It's good to see you tonight, too. All right, let's talk about the midfielders because there are 6. 2 holding midfielders, 2 quote-unquote 8s, and then, of course, 2 10s. Among this group, among the holding midfielders, it is Tyler Adams, who I expect to wear the captain's armband in this tournament. And his backup will be Christian Roldan. The 2, I guess you can say, box-to-box midfielders are going to be Weston McKennie and Sebastian Berhalter. And the 2 underneath 10s are going to be Gio Reyna and Malik Tillman. And the interesting thing about this is the concern in this midfield group, and it's understandable why there is concern because, number one, we still haven't heard from Mauricio Pochettino, and we still haven't heard from U.S. Soccer surrounding why Tanner Tessman wasn't included in this roster. Now, the prevailing wisdom, or what has been circulated, is that there is a muscle injury that is going to keep him out. And okay, fair enough. Now, whether or not that's been confirmed, I don't know. But until I hear otherwise, I'm going to roll with that. But that also left Aidan Morris, who, again, was probably one of the most consistent players in Europe at that position, outside of a guy like Tyler Adams, who was also conveniently consistent this season. And so from that standpoint, even if there is a situation where Tanner Tessman is available, you would probably expect that Aidan Morris would be heavily in this mix. And the fact that he was omitted, that is concerning to me. That is concerning. What's also concerning is the fact that, listen, you guys understand how big of a Sounders guy that I am. Obviously, I'm from Seattle. I'll be back in Seattle for the U.S. versus Australia. I make no bones about the fact that I'm a Sounders guy. But on the one hand, last season, Christian Roldan had a career year. And what was amazing about it was the fact that he was, 30 doing it. And generally speaking, you probably would expect that to be anywhere between 26 and 29. But last year really was a career year. And I think that kind of manifested in that Leagues Cup final. Yes, there was some tailing off towards the latter half, getting into the playoffs. And we all remember what happened against Minnesota in the playoffs. This season, it hasn't started off well for Christian. If you're calling it straight down the middle, and that's to me is why it's concerning, is because coming into this World Cup, form-wise, it's not as good as it was last year. And when you have a guy like Aidan Morris who is consistent, it is a little concerning. I'm not going to I can't beat around the bush. It is alarming. And then there are those that would rather have Yunus Musa than a guy like Sebastian Berhalter. But again, what I will say is that just like Tanner Tessman, we're not going to know what the beef was between Pochettino and Yunus Musa. Now, was it an issue of a bad first impression between player and coach? Was it the fact that, under Pochettino, he really couldn't figure out exactly what his best position was? Or was it the fact that he didn't commit to Gold Cup last summer? And different rules apply for different players, right? So, for example, Gio Reyna has a little bit more credibility in the bank because he was a part of the World Cup squad in 2022, and his talent is undeniable. That being said, you can easily make the case for his omission on this roster because the last 2 years have been hot garbage for Gio. But unlike Gio, Yunus Musa doesn't have that credibility in the bank because as soon as he leaves Spain and goes to Italy, it's been literally downhill for him. And his national team performances by and large, haven't been spectacular. And so maybe that was a part of the equation. Maybe it was Pochettino was looking for like some sort of commitment, whereas Christian Pulisic can get away with it because he's Christian Pulisic. Maybe there's different standards for a guy like Yunus Musa. But regardless of whatever the reason is, and I don't know, but Sebastian Berhalter is on this roster, and if we're calling it like it is, and I know there are going to be a lot of people that will say that Major League Soccer is not on that level, but he was one of the three reasons why Vancouver got to an MLS Cup final last year and nearly pulled it off against a very talented Inter Miami team. And through the first half of the season, he's been awesome. And he's had some moments over the last year with the national team where, conceivably speaking, you can say that he's earned the right to be on this roster. Like I wouldn't say that wouldn't be the case, because I actually think it is the case where he actually earned it. Me personally, I think he earned it a little bit more than Christian Roldan. I'll be the first one to say it. But that being said, he's the type of guy that you can bring off the bench. He's very good on set pieces. And so we'll see exactly how this one plays out. And of course, with the 10s, Malik Tillman and Gio Reyna. The question is this going to be determined by the opponent who starts? Or is this like Malik Tillman's the starter and Gio Reyna is going to be coming off the bench and grabbing those minutes off the bench? Or is this something where, Gio Reyna is kind of in a better position? Don't know yet. We're going to find out exactly what's going to happen with that 10 position. Or that being said, if we're playing 3 at the back and we're playing 2 10s underneath the striker, is this something where Weston McKennie is going to be playing higher up? And, your double, I guess you can say your double pivot is going to be what? Tyler Adams, Sebastian Berhalter. Maybe that is something that we're probably going to see. Who knows? Who knows at this one? Greg 1987 says, our starters in midfield is solid, but we get in yellow card trouble or injury, I am concerned. That is something where I'm also concerned as well, too, because all you have to do is take a look at the way that Tyler Adams plays with Bournemouth. That dude is a yellow card machine. But that being said, he's also that aggressive where, at least once a game, he's going to pull one of those tackles where he's going to get booked. And so from that standpoint, if that is the situation, now it's my understanding that once you get out of the group stage, those, the yellow cards wash away and it starts over again. I don't know exactly what the rules are with the expanded tournament this season. We'll find out. I got to look into it. But so far right now, I would say that there is concern within the midfield, and it's a legit concern to have within the midfield. But if things break right, I think this is going to end up being much to do about nothing. Now, of course, it has to break right, and injuries and yellow cards do play a role into this. But if it breaks right, it's not going to be that big of an issue. And let's turn to the forward position, because it looks like we have 3 strikers and 4, I guess you can say, wingers. And of course, the 3 strikers, Flo Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, and Haji Wright. And again, those are the 3 names that we all expected that would be there. I didn't think there was going to be any striker surprise. Like I wasn't expecting Josh Sargent to make the squad. I wasn't expecting Brian White. It was literally going to be these three strikers. And obviously, if Patrick Agyemang stayed healthy, we have a different conversation. But it's not the way it played out. And the good news with that is all 3 of them come into the World Cup or coming into this camp reasonably in very good form. All 3 of them had I would call stellar finishes to their seasons. And I can't imagine a scenario where their form is going to taper off over the course of a week. So from that standpoint, I think this group is probably the most talented as far as the strikers go going into a World Cup. I'm trying to remember a different time, really. So let's see. I'm trying to think. Was the I don't think the 2002. If I can remember, let's see. Josh Wolf. Brian McBride, Clint Mathis. Yeah, this is way better. This is way better. And let's see, just out of curiosity, because the two cycles that I can remember were probably like 2002, 2010. And it was like that one was Josie, Edson Buttle, Clint, Mauricio, Robbie Finley, Hercules Gomez. Yeah, this is way better too. This one's way better. Yeah. McBride and Mathis were pretty good. But yeah, for the most part, this probably is the best group of strikers that we have taken into a World Cup, and I don't think it's really close. Yeah, you're absolutely right, Greg. They combined for 56 goals. And the 90 cycle is a no, the 94 cycle is a no, 98 is a definite no. Like the only two cycles that stand up are 02 and in 2010. But yeah, this one's completely different. And I guess you can say the wingers on this squad, Christian Pulisic, obviously, Tim Weah, Brendan Aronson, and Alex Zendejas all make this roster. And for the last couple days, I think people have gotten this one wrong because I do not think that the battle was between Gio Reyna and Diego Luna. I don't think that was the roster battle. I think Gio Reyna and Brendan Aronson were going to be locks regardless. And that seemed to me evident. To me, that was actually obvious. Like for Brendan Aronson, it was obvious for quite some time because Brendan, by and large, has been a part of the national team for, I think, pretty much every single window, minus maybe one. And I think that could have been because of injury. But outside of that, Brendan's been a part of the fold for like damn near a year. He was a part of Gold Cup. And Gio, once Gio came in the November window and was brought back in March, for me, just by him being on that March roster kind of signaled to me that he was going to be a part of the World Cup roster. And it was all about his attitude coming into camp and then obviously the way he trained. And from everything that I heard, even back into his Borussia Dortmund days, was that, he was a phenomenal trainer. Training wasn't really his issue. It was his attitude. And it feels like his attitude is a hell of a lot better to the point where I think it made Pochettino's decision easier. To me, the battle was between Zendejas and Luna. And for me, it's the interesting thing is like, I appreciate what Luna brings to the table because, as my good friend Jeff would point out, that he's a little bit of a disruptor. He does something different and he plays with flair and he plays with style. But the question is whether or not that is something that you can trust as you move deeper into the tournament, right? When you're looking for goals off the bench. Now, for me at least, I rate Liga MX higher than Major League Soccer. And it just is what it is because of the money that they spend and because of the depth of teams, especially at the top of Liga MX. Generally speaking, you're playing against a better caliber defender. And if you're watching if you're watching Alex Zendejas, and granted, Zendejas hasn't been around since the September camp. A lot of it had to do with injury, so he has missed time with injury. But Zendejas just has an eye for goal. And all you have to do is look at his game logs to understand it. Shit, all you have to do is watch Club America play. And what I like about him is that he plays across the midfield three. So if you need him to play outright, he can do it. Even though he's a 10 at Club America, that's where he plays primarily, is underneath the striker. And he just seems to have a knack for goal, and he just seems to either be able to distribute in crunch time, or he's able to find the back of the net more oftentimes than not. And I think Pochettino was looking at that as an asset, because there are going to be times where he's going to have to bring somebody off the bench, and magic is going to have to occur. And I think the reason why he's taken Zendejas instead of Luna is Zendejas might just be a little bit more battle-tested playing in Liga MX versus Diego Luna against subpar defenses in Major League Soccer. And that's kind of the battle that I thought that it was going to be between those two. And I think he got it right. I really do. And as much as I love Diego Luna, and I think everybody understands at this stage that this is a big Diego Luna channel. I actually appreciate Diego Luna, what he brings to the table. But in this context, for this World Cup, I think Pochettino got this one right. Let's see. I know we are made to hate Liga MX, and it's all MLS here, but Club America is a huge club. And yeah, 100%. And the thing about it is I don't hate Liga MX. I actually enjoy it because it's a fun league to watch. And when you actually see the Mexican supporters, and especially with big clubs down in Mexico, because Club America is probably the biggest next to Chivas. And when you think about the pressure that is required to perform at Club America, where it is expected that you win, and if you don't, those supporters are on your ass, just like that, just like with any big club in Europe. There is an expectation level at Club America. And me personally, it's like it takes a strong personality to be able to go there and to be able to perform. And me personally, not Diego, but Alex Zendejas just might actually end up being a pivotal player for this team, without a doubt. And I 100% fully believe it. But what I will say regarding this team is that it is set up to be on the front foot. When I look at this roster, and when I look at the strength of this roster, which is its midfield and its forward depth. And by the way, here's what I will say about the U.S. men's national team is, Greg 1987 said, like, the best forwards we've taken into the World Cup, it's not just strikers, but it's also forwards as well, too. When I think about the strength of this team, it's going forward. In the outside wingers with Pulisic and Weah, if they are indeed going to play with a back four and two traditional wingers, me personally, I think it is I think it is the strongest, along with our striker group. And so when I look at this, like if this team is going to play three at the back, I think it suits this team incredibly well, because essentially what this roster tells me is that they are going to be attacking more oftentimes than not, which means those first two games, they're going to be going for it. They're going to try to score early and try to put teams away to take pressure off their obvious weaknesses, which is going to be their defense. Most notably is that center back group. By controlling possession, by attacking, and utilizing that midfield, whether that is via mid-block or whether pressing the ball and pinning it to the wing, to create turnovers mid-pitch or higher up, so that teams don't have the opportunity to pin us back. Because if we get into a situation where we're essentially conceding possession and playing a counter-attacking team, it's counterintuitive to the strengths of this team. Like, we're not that type of team because we don't have an Eddie Pope and we don't have a Bocanegra or an Alexi Lawless or a Tony Sana or a Marcelo Balboa. We don't have those type of defenders, or an Omar Gonzalez, or an Noguchi Onyewu. We don't have that type of center back depth where we can actually play a counter-attacking style of football. That's just not who we are. We are a front-footed team that has to play to the strengths. And when I look at this roster, that's exactly what it says. To me, it is exactly what Pochettino likes to play, and historically that has been his strength, is attacking football, front-footed football, possession and pressure moving forward, and trying to pin opponents back. And the benefit about this roster is the fact that we have already played Paraguay and we've already played Australia. Yes, they played us. So obviously both teams have scouted each other, and it's going to be which game plan is going to be better. And me personally, I'd rather take, especially in those first two games, I'm going to bet on us to be able to get those 6 points. Now, Turkey is a different animal because, yes, we played them last year, and it was a horrible loss. But that being said, we didn't play Turkey full strength during those pre-Gold Cup friendlies. Like, we didn't get Turkey full strength. So from that standpoint, it's going to be interesting to see which team is better on the day. Like, on paper, maybe you would probably take Turkey because maybe their talent just reads a little bit better. But that being said, on the day, on a home World Cup, that one to me can go either way, personally. But when I look at this roster, it plays to the strengths of this team, which is getting forward and continuously getting forward and putting pressure on defenses and goalkeepers, and trying to mitigate how many times opponents' attack is going to be able, to test our back three or our back two and our goalkeepers. That's kind of the way that this roster reads for me. Let's see. Let's get your take, Steve. Is this the best roster we're taking into to a home World Cup? Is this the best roster period that we've taken to a World Cup, or we're taking to a home World Cup? Because there's only been one other roster in a home World Cup, and by far this is better than the '94 team. I think talent for talent, this is better than the '94 team. But is this the best roster we've taken to a World Cup? I think the the 02 team might be a little bit better. With our current player pool, is this the best roster we could have taken? Great question. I guess it depends on how you feel about the midfield. Would you rather take Yunus Musa than Sebastian Berhalter? I'm sure most people would say yes. I don't know. Because listen, man, Yunus Musa, I don't know. If Yunus Musa was starting and I had a large sample size to look at, maybe I would feel different. Maybe I'd feel different about Yunus Musa. But I have a large sample size with Sebastian Berhalter. I'm pretty confident I know what he can and can't do. And I don't think his play is going to be a liability. But as far as this being the best roster we've taken into the World Cup, I still think the 02 team, at least defensively, is way better. And maybe even offensively too. Let's see. But with our current player pool, if we could have gotten Noah Kai Banks to come, that would have made me feel a lot better defensively. that would have made me feel far and away better defensively. If we had no Akai, even if it is for a start or two, depending on the formation we're playing, and especially understanding that Chris Richards might not be 100%, to have that in the bank, no pun intended, that would have made me feel a little bit better. But as far as like the overall depth of this team, I'm not exactly upset with it. I'm not upset with it because this is exactly the roster that I thought was going to get chosen. I like the inclusion of Scally. I think that is going to. I think Scally can eat some minutes if we're going with a back three, and if for whatever reason Chris Richards is having issues, it makes me feel a little bit more comfortable knowing Scally's there, so we don't have to see Miles Robinson, or even a guy like Alex Freeman. I wouldn't have a problem with. It's going to be interesting to see with the two MLS midfielders and exactly the roles they're going to be having. I think most people will point to that as the weak link. I don't necessarily think it's as weak of a link as our center back group, personally. Let's see. How do you feel about Gio Reyna being used as a potential center mid? Well, I think his best position on the national team is probably playing as a 10. So from that standpoint, if he is backing up Malik Tillman in that position, I think it's going to prove pivotal. We saw it a little bit in that November window against Paraguay, Uruguay. He actually looked pretty solid as a 10. But as like a center mid, like a box to box, I can't see Gio Reyna playing further down the pitch. That's why we have Wes, and that's why we have Sebastian Berhalter on the roster. Those are going to be your link up guys. Now, again, it all depends on which formation we're playing. If we're playing a 4-2-3-1 and we have Tyler Adams as that holding midfielder and you want to use somebody as a link, that's kind of where Wes is probably going to be playing. And also not just in the link up play, but also as a late box crasher, right? That is going to be the area where Wes is probably going to be deployed. And I probably would assume that Gio Reyna is probably coming off the bench 65th, 70th minute, depending on the circumstances mid-game where we're at. That's probably going to be the role that Gio will facilitate. But that being said, who knows what happens in training? Does Gio Reyna push Malik Tillman in training leading into the World Cup to the point where, he's pushing as a starter? That's going to be an interesting position battle heading into the World Cup. Spiders Latan, cool name, by the way. I think we might get 7 points out of this group. Strong possibility. I think right now we're better than Paraguay, Australia, but I don't take any of those teams for granted. I think people forget just how good Australia was in the last World Cup, getting out of their group and taking Argentina to like the 85th minute. Granted, they were never going to beat Argentina, but the fact that they were able to get out of their group last World Cup and also fight scratch and claw against the team that eventually won it, I thought that was kind of an impressive performance from Australia. And one of the things about Australia is, they play like we used to, understanding that, yeah, they don't have the talent, but what they do is they have the heart and they have the passion, and they're going to make teams play. If we're overconfident or we come in overlooking them, there's a chance that we get beat. But yeah, like on paper, we should be heading into Turkey at 6 points and atop of the group. And then, whatever happens against Turkey happens against Turkey. Let's see. I feel like, let's see, LeBron James Jr., a.k.a. Bronny. I really feel we can go further than Mexico this World Cup. I kind of do too. I do too. I'm not sold on Mexico. Me personally, I think this is the worst Mexico roster we've seen in 30 years. Pound per pound, what Mexico used to produce and what they're producing now, not even close. Paraguay is strong defensively. Yeah, they are. They're also strong getting forward as well too. Spiders Latan says the keepers bring it down a lot. Yeah. I can dig it. I'm getting there, Tony. Jesus. Wait your turn, bud. I'm getting to you. You're next, bud. Here's the thing, though, right? As I was saying earlier, it's like we had an abundance of riches at the goalkeeper position forever. Like when you think about it, like in 90 and 94, we had Miola, and then Keller and Friedel came through. And, Keller and Friedel and Miola were all three of them were on the 0-2 squad. You're talking four cycles. And then, we had Tim Howard for 3. You know what I mean? And it's like, we had an abundant and if, Howard couldn't go, we had Brad Guzan as well too, who wasn't nearly as he wasn't nearly as acclaimed, but he also wasn't a slouch either. Like we had an abundance of riches at the goalkeeping position for years. And really that it kind of ended with Tim Howard and Brad Guzan. And, for whatever reason, it didn't work out with Zach Steffen in Europe, and it didn't work out with Tim, with Matt Turner, with Everton, with Arsenal and Forest. It didn't work out. And, for whatever reason, although the reason is because you wonder whether or not they were just happy being Premier League players, right? Where it's like you get exposed quick in the Premier League with your weaknesses, right? So it's like you have to constantly be diligent and you have to be constantly improving your weaknesses, or you're going to be out of a job quick. And one of the things that I didn't like about Matt Turner in 22 was that his positioning was a little suspect. Now, granted, I thought he had a fairly solid World Cup, but by the time we saw him in Copa America 2024, it still hadn't really improved. And listen, man, he's back in Major League Soccer for a reason. And I think some of it is attributed to that. They didn't take advantage of the opportunities that were given. And now I think the 3 best in Europe right now are Diego Cochin, Jonathan Klinsmann, and Gaga Slonina. And all 3 of them probably need to get moves. And at least Jonathan Klinsmann's a starter. He got hurt, but, Cochin and Slonina need to get away from Barca and Chelsea respectively, and they need to get starting quick. Who is the fastest defender on the roster? Oh, that's a great question. If healthy, probably Chris Richards, but Austin Trusty is actually pretty quick. I think Austin Trusty doesn't get a lot of love. I think we tie Paraguay, beat Australia, and tie Turkey. So 5 points in the group, that gets them through. The idea is, we want to win this group. It was designed for us to win this group. We're one of the host nations, and it was designed for us to win this group, without a doubt. Paraguay has a good defense. Yeah, they do. That's a good team. I think they finished 8th in Common Bowl. It's either 6th or 8th, right off the top of my head. I can't remember. It was either 6th or it was 8th that they finished, but I think they had like 8. I think they had 8 qualifiers, or it could be 6, and I'm just tripping. But either way, they finished in one or the other. But they were actually a pretty good team. Let's see. I would start Turner. I don't trust. I don't think the gap between Turner and Freeze is that big. Because of that, I personally value the experience that Turner has, not only in caps but more importantly World Cups. I understand. And by the way, in theory, I agree with you. In theory, I would agree with you. My only problem is that Matt Turner is not good on the line. His positioning is not good. And I think we saw that against Belgium, where his path to saves are just late because he just seems to be in the wrong place to be able to get to balls a little bit quickly. I think Matt Turner is better at that, Matt Freeze is better. And I also think Matt Freeze is better at stopping PKs. I think he's better at PKs. Where Turner's really good is in the air. His ability on set pieces is good, and his ability to get up there. I like Matt Turner in the air, but I think Matt Freeze is a better shot stopper all the way around. He seems to be in the right places. Now, can Matt Freeze get beat? Yeah, he can get beat. There's no doubt about it. And we've seen him get beat. But me personally, when it comes to goalkeepers is, who's better at making the big save? And I just think Matt Freeze, for me at least, is just a little bit better at that. I would have sworn T-Rob was the fastest. You mean Miles Robinson? Yeah, I don't know, man. For me, Austin Trusty is actually, I like Austin Trusty and I like his game, and I actually think he's pretty pacey as well too. I think we saw that a lot in that Portugal game. His ability to track back and get in position was actually pretty nice. Me personally, I thought Miles Robinson has never really been the same after the injury, and I think he's also a little step slower. But again, he can defend. I guess that's the best aspect of a defender is his ability to defend. But me personally, I just against top flight opposition, top flight wingers getting around the corner, I don't want Miles Robinson in there. I think the only win we will draw against is Turkey. The only one we will draw is against Turkey. I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting, man. That one against Turkey is going to be interesting, man. Because again, if you're looking at it just on paper, you might make the case that they're better, but it depends on how we go into that game. If we're going into that game on 6 points and we're looking to win the group, and it's a home World Cup and we have momentum, who knows how that match plays out? Who knows how that match plays out, man? That's the X factor, right? The fact that we're on home soil and what the mindset of this team coming in is going to be like, right? So one of the things that I never liked about this in the second cycle was, to me, it was evident that this team shows up when it wants to. Against, the fifth time that they played Panama in like a year and a half, they don't seem to get up for. But, if it's a tournament like, Nations League and they're motivated to win it, they'll turn up. So I would probably assume that this team is going to be ready to go for game 1 of the World Cup. I would probably assume we'll probably see it against Senegal and Germany as well too. That's the hope, at least. That's the hope. But in conclusion, man, I will say that, again, this roster is exactly what I expected it. Yes, there are a few names that I had that weren't a part of this, and of course, I will be back, and I think I'll be back on Thursday night as I'm going to have where I got it right and where I got it wrong. But overall, this was the collection that I expected. I didn't expect any surprises. Maybe Diego Luna was a little bit of a surprise, but overall, it felt straightforward. And I felt that way for about a year now. Like, again, and I think it's important for U.S. men's national team fans to remember is that Mauricio Pochettino was hired to win with what the Federation considered was the golden generation, right? So Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Flo Balogun, Ricardo Pepi, Malik Tillman. It's like this is what has been dubbed the golden generation, and that's why he was hired, and that's what he was brought in to do, which is to win, or at least get as deep as they possibly can, because this is the exact same situation as we saw in '94 when we had the home World Cup back in '94, and they hired Bora Milutinovic. Is they didn't want to get embarrassed on home soil, and it's the exact same reason, because the Federation has invested a lot in this home World Cup. Not just the U.S. Federation, the Canadian Federation, and the Mexican Football Federation. They invested a lot of money to get this World Cup. And there is a reason why Mauricio Pochettino was brought in, and it was not to recruit dual nationals. It was not to, streamline the pathways from the youth team to the senior team. That's not why he's here. He had 18 months to win with this core of players. And if there was going to be any changes, it was going to be on the peripheral, which is exactly what he did, to players that fit his style. But by and large, the players that I expected to be here are here. And they're 4 years better. Allegedly, they're supposed to be 4 years better from the last time we saw them in 2022. And I think we can conceivably say that Jedi is better 4 years later. Yeah, he's had some injury issues, but he's better. Serginho Dest is better. You hope. Chris Richards is definitely better than he was 4 years ago. Now there are some issues. McKennie's better. Pulisic is better. Flo is better, although Flo wasn't a part of the 2022 cycle, but he's gotten better over the last 4 years. And so for the most part, it's pretty goddamn straightforward. So, again, the way that I look at this is that this team fits its strengths, which is getting forward. And that's what the first two matches are exactly for doing that. It is to score early, put teams away by halftime, control possession, and mitigate our weaknesses, which is our center back group. And maybe goalkeeper, depending on how you look at it. The more that we can limit opposing attacks from picking that back line apart, the better. And it's going to be interesting. That Turkey match is going to be interesting, because I would probably assume that Arda Güler and what Turkey brings to the table, they're going to be able to get numbers forward as well too. So that one's going to be the interesting one. Maybe Paraguay. Maybe. Let's see. We have Pepe JG7. At what point do you think he picks Zendejas? He did not get a lot of playing time at all. It's interesting. The interesting thing was that he wasn't available in October and November. Like, it was bad timing when it came to the windows because he was dealing with injuries. But when he was playing in Liga MX, and again, I think Liga MX is better than Major League Soccer. I think they have better defenses, better quality defenders, and when you watch him play for Club America, he just has a knack for the net, the knack for the back of the net. And I think that was the decision. I think that was the reason why he's taken Zendejas. I think that was the reason why he's taking Zendejas over Diego Luna, is because there are going to be moments in this World Cup where we have to have somebody off the bench that can find space and find the back of the net. And I think Zendejas right now is probably the better pick than a guy like Diego Luna. And again, this is no disrespect to Diego Luna because I like Luna. And I think he's going to be a part of the core that makes up the 2030 team. I really believe that. But for this team right now, I think Zendejas was the right call. And yeah, you're right. I think you're absolutely right. He has been pretty good for his team. He's been actually a lot better for his team than I think a lot of people give credit for. But that's going to do it for me, guys. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I will be back in a few days as we continue this conversation. I do want to thank all those that participated in the chat tonight, man. You guys are rock stars. Please do me a favor and throw me a like and a subscribe, because I want to get this channel up to 500 before the start of the World Cup. And so your support for the channel would be greatly appreciated. It's free, man. All you got to do is click the button. And I would appreciate you guys doing that. So again, I'll be back in a few days and to continue this discussion. And of course, we will be doing the live streams for both Senegal and Germany here on the channel. So we will get our look at this specific roster heading into the World Cup. And I think we're going to know a lot more about this team before we actually get to the World Cup. And so I'm looking forward to that as well, too. And I'm sure you guys are eagerly awaiting this team against what I consider a very good Senegal team. So there's a lot heading up on this channel. I'm looking forward to it, man. I'm absolutely buzzing for this World Cup. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your night. I know it's Tuesday. Kind of sucks, the work week and everything. But the cool part is Friday is literally just right around the corner. So I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your work week. I know I will. And so until I see you on Thursday night, man, take care.
Rusted goalposts under faded